On Tuesday morning, the Government Accountability Board approved recall elections for Senators Alberta Darling, Sheila Harsdorf, and Robert Coles, all Republicans. The GAB did not even take up the issue of recall elections against Democrats, even though the petitions against Democrats were filed the same day as Darling's and a week before Coles. This has called into question the nonpartisan nature of the GAB, something the Democrats' legal counsel said was ridiculous.
There's this hiccup in the schedule. These folks have been working like dogs. And, one side becomes afraid it's not going to get what it wants. And so it starts basically calling names. And I'm not talking about opposing counsel. He was fairly restrained. But there's the odd, intemperate person out there who every time they think they might not get what they want, they start screaming that they're the victim of this, that, or the other thing. That's all it is.
And why are they lumping particular three together from one side when they're going to hear the others? That's politics.
This is not a situation where we let the public micromanage our workload. Whether these are the people involved, I understand their political concerns, and they will have the opportunity to address those concerns either through their attorneys in a court proceeding later this week, or once the recall petitions are ordered, they can take their case with those concerns as part of the voting at the ballot box. But I think the staff made it very clear what the parameters were that it was looking at in evaluating those petitions, and I think there's no question from the board standpoint that the staff approached this in an even-handed, fair, unbiased manner, and did nothing more than really try to get their job done within the constraints that were given.
The GAB says it wants to take up the Democrat recall petitions next week, which means those elections could be held after the Republican recall elections. However, the GAB must first go to court and ask for an extension, since it is currently required to file the election paperwork no later than this Friday.
Also, the GAB states that our three recalls will be considered the week of June 6th. However, the GAB has no authority to make that statement. The Wisconsin statutes allow for a 31-day calendar review process in recall elections. The GAB went to court and the judge allowed them to extend the review period until June 3rd. At that time, we did not oppose the extension. We do not support a further extension and will oppose it when the GAB goes to court for an extension later this week. We call on the GAB to consider our recalls this week in compliance with the schedule they set up. Justice delayed is justice denied.
GAB said there were more challenges to the Democrat recalls than the Republicans, making it easier to push through the Republican recall elections first.
In terms of whether we're favoring the Republicans or favoring the Democrats, that's never been an interest on my part, and I think I can say that on behalf of my colleagues also. Politics has never been part of our interest.
Is a Jim Doyle creation appointed by Jim Doyle and also approved by a Democratic legislature? You tell me if they're biased or not.
Unless the GAB moves immediately to certify these recalls, they are telling the over 60,000 residents of Wisconsin who signed all three of our petitions that their voices don't count. And in fact, it's like saying to this is their verification letter of 17,544 signatures for District 22, Kenosha County, basically. This is what they're telling our residents, just like that.
The GAB has already certified the recall elections against 3 other Republican senators. All 6 Republican recall elections could take place on July 12th. It is unclear when the Democrat recall elections will take place, or if the GAB will approve them at all. For the MacIver Institute, I'm Bill Osmulski.